For the final time in 2018, we bring you the Trojaninsider.com post-game recap. My name is Peter Ghersen, alongside Scott Schrader here, and USC has just concluded the 2018 season with a loss, although a valiant effort against an undefeated Notre Dame team as the Trojans fall by a touchdown 24-17. USC will not be going to a bowl game. It's the first time since 2000 that the Trojans end 5-7, which was the end of the Paul Hackett era at USC.
You're not supposed to say that name.
Paul Hackett, he says not supposed to say that name. But Scott, is Clay Helton going to be in that same category as a fired coach here at USC?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to know. You know, you hear so many conflicting stories and information going everywhere. I haven't heard from anybody that I would be willing to run a story about it. You know, we're talking about it, and it seems like it would be a likely scenario. But then again, you know, you're not hearing anything that's concrete. So I'm inclined to think, just based off what I know, and I don't have any inside information on this. This isn't recruiting and football team related stuff. This is Heritage Hall stuff. So, you know, I'm inclined right now to think that he's probably coming back.
Yeah, I agree. I've actually heard from an insider source that, I'll just say that, has heard that Clay is coming back, and from everything that Clay's telling us, Lynn Swann is making no indication. It sounds like Lynn Swann is a huge fan of Clay Helton. So we'll have to see what that future entails. But let's just talk about the players, too, in tonight's game. First of all, Notre Dame came in as 12-point favorites, and everyone thought it was going to be much more than 12 points. If I was a betting man coming in, I was going to put money on Notre Dame to blow this game out by more than 12 points. USC, they're a first-quarter team, as you mentioned, and they came out hot. JT Daniels converted on his first 16 out of 17 passes. He was hitting Amon-Ra St. Brown, hitting Pittman, hitting Vaughns. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 7 catches in that first half. He had whole games where he didn't have more than a couple targets.
You know what's interesting about that first half is that it almost appeared that Lane Kiffin had come back to call the plays. And I don't mean that in a bad way either. I mean, what they were doing is they were taking what the defense was giving them. They had those short passes. They had the passes in the flats. And that's just like running the ball. Yeah. You know, it's a high, efficient, a high percentage, very efficient way of gaining yards. And so on top of that, they were keeping Notre Dame's offense at the same time off the field. So it was actually, yeah. I mean, I wrote on Twitter, or posted on Twitter, dare I say that USC looks like they're out coaching Notre Dame. I mean, I didn't say that, but I just going, it looks like it was a well-coached, the game plan looked like it was well-designed and it was well-executed. And then, of course, the second half happens, and USC never does a whole lot right in the second half. So, but it looked like a lot was flowing. Marquis Stepp got in the game, and he got some. You know, it looks like there's a bright future there. We've talked about that before, but so you know, it was weird. And a lot of us were talking about how, at the conclusion of this football game, unlike last year where it looked like Notre Dame was clearly just light years better than USC, this year I actually feel like USC was the better football team today.
Today is important.
Player-wise. Yeah. Player-wise and so on. But execution-wise, Notre Dame, very few penalties. So, you know.
We had 2 all night, yeah.
You're talking about a well-coached, disciplined football team. So that stuff matters. So, you know, if USC if they had 2 penalties in this football game, I mean, we're talking about USC going to a bowl game because they would have beat Notre Dame easily today. But they don't. They have these penalties, and it happens every week, and fumbles. You know, fumbles down inside the red zone, and, you know, it's just over and over and over again. So they find ways to lose football games, and this was just another example of that.
Yeah, I like your point about Marquis Stepp. The guy had 2 carries all season coming in.
Yeah.
Tonight he had 5, and he went for about 40 yards. He's a dangerous guy in the back. I mean, a huge recruit for USC. Didn't see the playing field at all this year.
Great kid.
But apparently Vavae Malapea got injured in that second half.
MCL.
Yeah. I mean, not that it matters for the near future, of course. Right. We love Vavae and hope that when it comes back just as strong next year with Ced Ware leaving, it's going to be up to Carr and Stepp and Vavae to lead the charge, which you look at it, that's a deep, stable running backs once again next year, plus any freshman recruits that come in.
Right.
But you're right. The penalties has been killing USC all year long. I actually asked Clay Helton in the post-game press conference, you mentioned it the whole year. You had 18 penalties at Arizona, and you talked about how that needs to be cleaned up. That was way back in October.
Yeah.
Why are we in week 12 in November, and you're still saying that discipline's key, and USC had 8 more penalties tonight, which is, by the way, their season average of 8. Notre Dame had, I think, 3. And USC's always come at crucial moments. You mentioned the fumbles. Amon-Ra fumbled right behind us here on the 10-yard line. That was almost like deja vu against the Cal game. We also talked about how USC finally scored a touchdown in the second half for the first time in about 3 weeks. They never did it against Cal. They never did it against UCLA. So there were some good things from the USC team tonight. Of course, it's senior night, so a sad time. Marvell Tell couldn't even play tonight, which is a bummer in his last appearance at the Coliseum.
Well, you go to that also, and we're not making excuses when we talk about the penalties and the fumbles. That's part of being a good football team and winning football games. But USC, and Jordan McMillan had an interception, but he's a freshman walk-on at DB.
Chase Williams, freshman starting safety tonight.
I mean, I guarantee you Notre Dame's not playing freshman walk-ons right now. So, there's a lot going on at USC that is aiding to some issues that are going on. But in the end, it just doesn't seem like they're well prepared. They're not disciplined. And at times it doesn't look like they have any game plan for the offense. And so, Notre Dame is, you look at a team and it's just, you can just see the discipline. And, I'm not quite sure what their game plan was other than try and run the ball and then throw a fade ball. They had some good plays, and USC's defense, at some point, when USC's defense continues to be on the football field,
they're going to get tired.
They're going to give up plays at some point, and that's what it was in the second half. And, Notre Dame's a good football team. Good Lord, they hadn't lost a football game this year. So, but, you're talking about two contrasting football teams as far as discipline and preparation.
Exactly. Yeah, that's completely right. I just want to talk about the seniors for a quick second here. Cam Smith, his final game of the Coliseum. You got to love Cam Smith. He's an absolute grinder. 12 tackles to lead the Trojans tonight. Iman Marshall had 6 tackles and 3 pass breakups, including a key 4th down where he broke up the pass. So the seniors, we're going to miss them a lot, and they really led this team. But I asked the seniors, what do you expect out of the team next year and the year after? And they just said there's a very talented, we all know, but there's a very talented.
They expect fewer mistakes, fewer penalties, and clean up the mistakes. But, they've been saying that since the first week of the season, too. So what is it going to take to eliminate those mistakes? When we're sitting here going, gosh, maybe you need some significant changes with the coaching staff.
Yeah. Well, talking about coaching staff, Brian Kelly in Notre Dame, the entire Notre Dame coaching staff was fired 3 or 4 years ago, except Brian Kelly. They kept Brian Kelly.
Staff?
It was the entire offensive coordinator. Maybe a couple equipment managers stayed or something.
Well,
maybe the team masseuse.
Sure.
But the entire staff was fired except Brian Kelly, and look where they are now, 12-0. They're going to the national playoff. Possibly have a very good chance of going to the national title game.
If Notre Dame was located in Southern California, we'd be talking about them like Alabama. Yeah. That's how well run that machine is.
Yeah, you should have seen the team they had here tonight. The media was covering with them, the fans that traveled. It was fantastic.
Yep.
So looking forward to next year. When we talked to the seniors tonight, they said this team has a lot to work on. Yes, they need to be disciplined. Yes, they need to get right back tomorrow and this week and start getting off-season workouts. Clay Helton said tomorrow he's recruiting day 1 starts. But I think that this team has a lot of young guys that are injured right now or got their chance this year. Yeah. Like an EA today had a sack.
That stuff's going to matter. That is going to be significant going into next season. No doubt about it. So, though these young players got playing time, and they have some really young, talented football players at USC right now. So there's a lot to be excited about personnel-wise. We keep going back to the part we're not quite sure if the mix of coaching of the coaching staff is there, or whether at the top something needs to be changed. We don't know. Yeah. But there is a lot to be excited about, and Pete and I will do something next week, kind of recapping our thoughts on what took on the season. But everybody wants to vent, and this is just part of that, and we try and help with that. But there is a lot to be excited about as a USC fan. We believe going forward, there just needs to be some significant changes to make it all happen.
Yeah. I think guys like Tim Drevno is going to stay. The players seem to love him. He's now the offensive line coach who took over for Neil Callaway. And I asked Austin Jackson what was the difference between Callaway and Drevno. He wasn't going to give me too much, but he said Drevno's great. A change of voice really helped the guys. And other than
the offensive linemen are all extremely happy with Tim Drevno. Yeah. I can tell you that. I know that
for sure. The last couple nights,
they like everything about the approach. And some guys weren't playing that should have been playing, like Jalen McKenzie, Elijah Vera. Every offensive lineman at USC will tell you that Elijah Vera Tucker is the best offensive lineman on the football, most talented. It took them 10 weeks to start him. So, those are good changes.
Yeah. I also kind of want to talk about how this USC team, their quarterback was talked about not progressing over the last few years, or last few games, I should say. JT Daniels, I heard it even on some radio shows, pregame shows, how JT Daniels hasn't progressed. But the last 2 times out, he's had career highs in pass yards, 337 last week, 349 this week, and he looked pretty comfortable tonight. I think he's grown. He's now kind of past that freshman. We can't keep saying he's a freshman. Yeah. He pretty much hit his sophomore status a couple weeks ago.
So now we have the media saying that true freshman quarterbacks are busts. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, JT is not the problem at USC. Yeah. Hasn't been the problem.
We've got, oh my gosh, we got footballs coming. I'm going to pick this one. Oh, no.
We're in the end zone?
We've got the Coliseum.
We have the people
Coliseum workers that cut the grass and make the sound in our background. They're playing a little end of season flag football.
Pretty good too. That was a pretty that pass right there. Was
yeah, I almost was going to tip it though, like Biggie Marshall.
All right, well let's try and wrap this up.
We will wrap this up, Scott. But we appreciate you guys all tuning in this year. USC falls to 5-7. No bowl game. One thing about no bowl game is that would have been another opportunity for these young players to get more reps.
Practices.
It would have been more practices, more reps. They would have had something to go for.
It's a big thing.
One thing we have to mention, I don't know if you noticed it, but all the players seem pretty positive and pretty uppity after the game tonight.
I know.
After a 5-7 season, for the seniors, that's it. They're done. No more USC football.
I asked Justin Diedick, first person I asked, is there anything positive about this football season that you can take away? And he said, I think tonight was. Well, whatever that meant, I don't know, but it did look like, I don't know, it was just strange. They lost this football game. They lost to ASU. Those were the best games they played this year.
Yeah. Maybe Washington State, I think you got to put in there.
Well, I wasn't
a team that only had.
The games I was at.
Okay, that was the one you missed.
I should have gone to probably none of the games, and maybe they made a bowl game.
But I think the fact that USC doesn't get to play in the bowl game is, even regardless of what bowl it was a disadvantage. Yeah. More reps for these teams. I mean, that's one thing about USC that people say they don't practice hard enough, and they don't tackle and practice as hard as, of course, they do in games. And you see it in the first couple games of the year. USC struggles with tackling players because they're not used to wrapping guys up and taking them to the ground. So I think the bowl thing, regardless of the bowl, it wouldn't have been a placard that you would have put in Heritage Hall winning the Holiday Bowl or something.
It was a road trip.
Another game, another road trip for Scott. Possibly if I could afford it. No, but that's just a bit of a sad point for USC on this team.
Yeah.
But we'll see with all the guys coming back healthy next year if this Trojan team can do a little better. Regardless, the offseason starts now. Recruiting starts now for Scott Schrader.
When Clay talks about recruiting starting now, I mean, he's not literally saying that. But they will start their in-home visits tomorrow. They'll be at Brew McCoy. Clay is not going to any of these. Take that for, don't read too much into that, because no head coaches are going to see Brew McCoy, but he's having a bunch of in-home visits. And they'll do Brew McCoy. They're doing Drake London. They're doing all the commits that they can do. So they're starting off with Brew McCoy, Drake London, Kayvon Thibodeau. He's on a commit. Stanley Taufo. They're going to go see him. And then next week they'll go on to guys like Jason Rodriguez and other people like that. But tonight there were some guys that were here tonight, like Jonah Tawanuu was here.
Thule.
There were a lot of impressive recruits here tonight, and they're not concerned at all about what's going on with the outcome. They think this is just a young team. They have a different perspective. So, you have to just go with it. Doesn't matter why or if they're right or wrong or whatever it is. They have their perspective, and they just think it's a young football team that has a bright future.
Yeah.
And
I was going to say, I saw guys like Talon Noah and Brandon Peely talking to some of these recruits.
Yeah.
And trying to, welcome and warm up to them, which I think is a great sign.
Hunter Eccles, after the game, looked at 4 or 5 guys and said, don't give up on us. We're going to be back real soon. So, fans aren't going to hear this and go, oh my God. But, that's what's going on between those people. Yeah. So, what we think of it or what fans think of it doesn't matter. It's USC is in position to finish very strong with recruiting.
Yeah. And we'll have to end this video by also saying congrats to Notre Dame. We give them the credit
yes.
because the away fans last week, UCLA fans were telling us that we didn't give them enough credit, and UCLA played a great game last week.
UCLA won 3 football games. 3 wins does not make you good. I don't care if people are writing about them, this up-and-coming team. The Pac-12 was garbage, and so was UCLA. So, I mean, that's just the way it is.
Utah's losing as we speak. Yeah. So, but we want to give our due respects to Notre Dame. They are not a crap football team, and they are going to the college football playoff. USC, season done, no bowl game. That's it. Biggest news now will be the recruits and if head coach Clay Helton and the rest of his staff stays. But you can find out all about that, all about the recruiting news, of course, on Trojaninsider.com. For Scott Schrader, my name is Peter Ghersen, and for the 2018 season, we say thanks for tuning in, guys, and have a good holiday season.